Alexander, can you start off here giving us a little bit of a sense here as to what happened, or at least what you know to have happened, and what type of response does the Ukrainian government want?
Well, look, I mean, I think our partners have already confirmed there's been an attack, a missile attack on Polish territory. 2 people have been killed, and our partners have confirmed that this is a Russian rocket, that was launched. Now, obviously, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Russia is trying to deny it. It comes with all the usual propaganda, fake news, and deceptive activity that they're covering it up with. So they're saying it was us, of course, surprise, surprise. But listen, we said all along that we are here to defend the post-World War II European peace order and democratic values more generally. And that's exactly what we've been doing. And I think now it's clear to everyone, or should be clear to everyone. And so this is a reason, this is a direct attack on NATO territory. This is exactly what it is. And this should trigger Article 5, and then NATO should decide how they respond. But clearly NATO needs to respond, and the world needs to make sure that they get rid of this Russian regime. We said all along, this is the only permanent, long-lasting solution, an end to this conflict and the war, is to make sure that we topple and destabilize the Russian regime. As long as the regime has the capacity and the financing and the means to focus on foreign policy as it sees fit, this is going to continue. And guess what? It's going to be worse. There's going to be further escalations and, in all likelihood, more attacks on NATO territory.
We were speaking, sir, to the Latvian defense minister, who talked about maybe starting to have conversations around shutting down the airspace. Remind us again sort of why that is important, and is that a good necessary step for you?
Absolutely, that would be a good first step, I think. Besides shutting down the airspace, we're also still waiting for modern tanks that we haven't received. We're waiting for more armored vehicles so that our army is not as exposed when it's trying to recapture lost territory. There's a lot of things that are still on the to-do list that haven't been done. There's still crippling sanctions that haven't been introduced on Russia. The list is long, and I think all of that should be now implemented. And yes, shutting down the airspace is important because, as you can see, Russia can still essentially pierce through our air defense because it's still porous, it's still not sufficient, and it can still hit targets and damage our energy infrastructure. The fact that I'm still talking to you with some electricity is actually a miracle. In all likelihood, I'm not getting electricity pretty soon. So yes, there's still a lot to do.
Prior to the incident of today, there was some talk, at least in media circles, that there had been some efforts to try to broker some degree of a diplomatic solution. Has there been discussions within the Ukrainian government about pursuing a diplomatic solution with Russia?
Well, look, I am amused by the fact that we're now talking about a diplomatic solution when this is happening, when there was a direct attack on NATO soil. I have to say, fundamentally, of course, we have been open to a diplomatic solution throughout. We were always very clear about it since day one of the full-scale invasion, in fact. We always said Russia should pull back. We're ready to talk about neutrality. We're ready to make compromises on certain issues. But now, 9 months into the full-scale invasion, after all the war crimes that have been uncovered and documented, we are demanding that our sovereignty is respected, our international borders are respected, those who have perpetrated these crimes are brought to justice. There's a list of things that need to be fulfilled, and then, of course, we can talk and negotiate about a peace settlement.
What is the path forward for de-escalation, though, as well? If that's what's also best in saving lives and trying to not escalate the situation. We heard from the State Department in the U.S. has said that they are trying not to escalate. What does de-escalation look like to you?
Well, look, we also need to be clear that we know what we're dealing with. It sounds nice to not, escalate, to de-escalate. If it was easy to do, we would have done it already 9 months ago, or even before that. We're dealing with a Russian regime that's not interested in a peaceful solution, and that's why we have this war in the middle of Europe, full-scale, full-blown war, like never seen since World War II, essentially. What? So look, the way to de-escalate permanently is to make sure we get rid of the Russian regime. That's the only way, unfortunately. I wish there was an easier solution. I wish I could tell you, look, we should sit down at some table and just talk. But this is something that we've tried over 8 years and we failed. And there's a reason we failed, because the Russian regime, fundamentally, the way it is built, the way it works, its architecture, it's not interested in a peaceful solution. It's interested in its imperial ambitions and in the legacy, imperial legacy. And that's why it's going to continue unless we get rid of the Russian regime.
When you say the Russian regime, is that just Vladimir Putin? If Putin is gone, does somehow the problem go away, or is it bigger than him?
Well, that's a good question, but in all likelihood, since the full-scale invasion started, it was Vladimir Putin initially. Now that we're deep into the conflict, there's a group of men around him that will probably continue with the war effort. We have to be honest about that. But by getting rid of Vladimir Putin, we will achieve something that's very important, which is to destabilize the Russian regime, which we will probably launch a battle for power within Russia. And that would deprive Russia of the means to keep focusing on foreign policy, in other words, on the war effort. And that's already a huge achievement. Now, of course, Russia is not a democracy the next day when Putin is gone. We shouldn't be believing in this. Obviously, that's delusional. However, it is important to get rid of Putin because the power structures are all built around him. And once he's gone, Russia is going to destabilize very quickly.